Hello and welcome to a new edition of Africa Today. And in this special edition of our program, we will talk about the 72nd anniversary of July 23rd revolution, as President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi said on Tuesday that the revolution draws significant memories. In a speech marking the event, the President said the date marked a twist in the history of Egypt and the whole region. He said it ended the long occupation of Egypt and inspired the peoples of the world to seek freedom, and highlighted Egypt's footing on the Arab, African and international stages. He said lessons from the 23rd of July included persistence to achieve national independence, prioritizing the nation and citizens, and exerting all efforts to boost social justice and protect the most vulnerable brackets. He said Egypt has coped with the changes of time and opened up to the world by improving its investment and economic capabilities and developing the industrial path and integrating within the international trade system. He said Egypt has at all times focused in protecting the national economy against global economic shocks and worked on providing social protection within comprehensive and effective mechanisms. And to shed more light on this special occasion, we are joined over the phone by Ambassador Ayman Mosharafa, former Assistant Foreign Minister. Good afternoon, Mr. Ambassador. Good afternoon. So it's a technical issue, and back to our program. And as we are saying that Egypt today is celebrating the 72nd anniversary of the July 23rd revolution, and it is an important memory in Egypt's history. And in the speech, the President said that the date marked a twist in the history of Egypt and the whole world. And moving to more reports from Africa, AU mid-year meeting, Cairo said it is committed to enhancing economic integration among African nations and improving development rates to raise the living standard across the continent. This came at the 6th mid-year coordination meeting of the African Union held in the Ghanaian capital, Accra. Details follow.
The 6th mid-year coordination meeting of the African Union held in the Ghanaian capital, Accra, Cairo said it is committed to boost African integration and development. The speech addressed the role of the new Partnership for Africa's Development (NEPAD) agency, currently chaired by Egypt, in promoting regional and continental integration under the umbrella of Agenda 2063. Madbouli said the main goals of Egypt's presidency of the NEPAD include securing financial resources for key fields in the continent, promoting the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, and strengthening the connection between peace, security and development, which encompasses post-conflict reconstruction efforts at the continental level. He added that despite recent advancements in peace, security and development, Africa still faces significant issues in these areas, along with economic challenges. He said the challenges also include high poverty and unemployment rates, terrorism and armed conflicts in several countries, which exacerbate related humanitarian crises. Madbouli noted that these challenges have been compounded by global geopolitical tensions, such as the ongoing Israeli war on Gaza, its impact on Red Sea navigation, and the Russian-Ukrainian conflict.
And the viewers, now we are back with Ambassador Ayman Mosharafa, former Assistant Foreign Minister, and he will talk to us, yes, about the 72nd anniversary of July 23rd revolution. Good afternoon, Mr. Ambassador.
Good afternoon, and good afternoon for the audience.
Yes, how would you elaborate on conditions first that led to the July 23rd events here? Can you give us a brief historical background?
The revolution of July 1923 was one of the pioneer revolutions in Africa and the Arab world. It has inspired a lot of freedom fighter movements in Africa. It has inspired some revolution in the Arab world. It held the torch of fight against colonialism, colonial power. The Egyptian revolution, of course, had helped a lot the Algerian revolution since it started in 1954 till the liberation of Algeria and the independence of Algeria from France. We helped the Congo. We Kwame Nkrumah, the first president of Ghana, was a friend of Egypt. Patrice Lumumba, all in the African capitals. I just came from Ghana. You had a street in the name of Jamal Abdel Nasser, the founder of the Egyptian Revolution. So the Egyptian Revolution is well known all over Africa and all over the Arab world.
Yes, Mr. Ambassador, also in his speech, President Sisi said the 23rd of July revolution inspired many freedom movements across the world. How would you elaborate on the statement?
Yes, as I told you before that we inspired the Ghanaian revolution, we inspired a lot of African movements. We helped them. Even in Cairo we had an office who helped a lot the African revolution nation. Nelson Mandela himself was in Cairo during a period of time, and Egypt helped Nelson Mandela and the ANC in bringing down the apartheid regime in South Africa. So our principle of the revolution itself, one of the main principles was fighting colonialization and foreign occupation in the continent.
So, Mr. Ambassador, also, if we talk about the impact of the current developments like the war in Gaza and Ukraine and the post-COVID economic downturn on the balance of global weights, how do you see this?
Can you repeat the question, please? I didn't hear it.
Yes, I'm asking you about the impact of the current developments like the war on Gaza and Ukraine and the post-COVID economic downturn on the balance of global heavyweights.
Of course, especially the war in Ukraine has impacted the African economy, because yes, the African nations are net importer of wheat and oils. So the price of wheat and oil has doubled, because yes, most of the African nation, most of the imports were coming from Russia and Ukraine. So the disruption of the line of export to Africa and the price hikes have affected severely the African economy. And of course, the Gaza war have affected the navigation in the Suez Canal. You yes, have right now a severe disruption of the navigation of the Suez Canal, which is an important line for African exports to Europe. So, I mean, those two wars, I hope that they will end, because they are affecting deeply the Arab and Egyptian and African economies.
So, Mr. Ambassador, also President Sisi in his speech said that following July 23rd, 1952, revolution, Egypt gave way to economic and industrial paths. How do you see developments to these two fields specifically since then?
Of course, one of the principles of the revolution was self-reliance.
Yes.
And the revolution started a heavy program of industrialization in Egypt, and we were self-reliant in many industries, and it has inspired the Egyptian experience, has inspired some African nations to follow suit on the path of self-reliance on the local economy and the national economy, instead of having a reliance on Western companies, which are the linchpin of the old colonial power.
Yes, Mr. Ambassador, also, if we talk about the revolution and to what extent the revolution have affected the society in Egypt at that time.
Of course, the revolution affected the society, especially the agricultural society.
Yes.
Because it has taken the land from big landlords and start distributing the peasant with small properties.
Yes.
Which the idea was social justice, to implement more social justice, and especially the land taken from the royal family and some big landlords. And of course, creating a big industrialization program. I mean, would double the employment opportunities, and to start to shift the society from an agricultural society is a semi-industrialized society, which was the main idea of the revolution.
So, sir, one final question. How would you describe the reaction of people to the events on July 23rd?
Of course, the people at that time, after several shaky coalition and after political instability, they welcomed the revolution at the time, and which would inspire them social stability and political stability. And I think the most important achievement of the revolution was the nationalizing of the Suez Canal in 1956. The Suez Canal was, a place for the old colonial power. England and France and some Western shareholders were monopolizing 80% of the canal property. So when we nationalized the Suez Canal, which was an Egyptian property, and the Egyptian lost 100,000 persons in making the Suez Canal. So I mean, the Suez Canal nationalization was a big achievement of the revolution, and still the Egyptians never forget this decision of President Nasser in 26th of July 1956.
Yes, I'd like to thank you, Ambassador Ayman Mosharafa, former Assistant Foreign Minister. Thank you, sir, for being with us. And the President Fattah al-Sisi said on Tuesday that the 72nd anniversary of July 23rd revolution drew significant memories. In a speech marking the event, the President said the date marked a twist in the history of Egypt and the whole region. Here is the full address.
The great people of Egypt, I speak to you today commemorating the 72nd anniversary of the great 1952 revolution, the day on which Egypt revives along with its great people the memories of sacred days that changed the history of Egypt and the whole region. It put an end to the long colonization, and it started the sovereignty of Egypt, and it inspired the nations of the whole world and supported their efforts towards national independence and liberalization. And there is a national liberal role that was played by the revolution to establish the great position of independent Egypt and to put its name high in the region, as well as at the level of the African continent and at the international level. And it supported the great people of the whole world, on top of which is the great people of Egypt, and gave them the opportunity to look at the lessons learned from history and to learn from the past, its achievements, its defeats, and its difficulties and challenges, to secure the continuous national pathway towards development, as well as achieving the supreme interest of the country. We learned from the lessons of the 1952 revolution that we would never give up on national independence and to protect the dignity of this nation and its people, and to exert all efforts under different circumstances to enhance social justice and to protect the vulnerable groups. And also the Great Revolution of 1952 supported the role of Egypt in its African continent as well as in the Arab region, and its great contribution to defend the interests of countries of the South in all continents worldwide. And Egypt went on playing this role through an active leading role in international different fora and events. And Egypt kept in line with the different developments and changes, so it was open to the whole world and exerted all efforts to improve its investment, economic, construction and industrial opportunities, and was included in the system of international trade while focusing on protecting the national economy as much as possible from the disturbances and the turbulences and the shocks of international economy, as well as work through effective integrated systems to provide the social protection needed for the people. And Egypt also preserved its land and its sovereignty and independence, and it inculcated a peace based on the restoration of land and justice while holding on to the rights of its people, as well as protecting the interests of its brothers, in particular its Palestinian brothers, and to protect the just cause from dissolving, as well as intensifying its efforts to help the Palestinians achieve their just right to a sovereign state. The great people of Egypt, the regional and international current changes impose on Egypt and other countries new challenges and complicated matters, between the increase of disturbances as well as the geopolitical conflict at the international level and in the region, and the spread of war, conflicts and national civil wars, as well as the collapse of a number of countries and its institutions, and the humanitarian catastrophic conditions, as well as the spread of famine and displacement of millions. All these unprecedented conditions exert more pressure on Egypt, and it is only reduced by our conviction of the strength of our people and its resilience before difficulties, and its unity that supports each other. And this makes me confident that, God willing, Egypt will overcome this phase that's facing a lot of disturbances internationally and regionally, and will continue its path of development, construction, to achieve the interests and the aspirations of all Egyptians to a free state, as well as a bright future for all the nation. Many happy returns to you all, and may Egypt always enjoy peace, stability and security, and always long live Egypt, long live Egypt, long live Egypt, and peace be upon you.
Welcome back, viewers, and now we are joined over the phone by Ambassador Ayoub Mahmoud Ayoub, Minister Plenipotentiary Commercial. Good afternoon. Mr. Ayoub, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes. So, sir, can you first give us a historical background about the July 23rd revolution and the conditions that led to the revolution at that time?
It was in July 23, 1952, when I was 14 years old or 15
Yes.
years old, and I am aware of what is happening around, and there was corruption, there was monarchy, and there was feudalism, and I know
the feudalists have done for the community. And so the revolution was the natural result, but there was of course the Palestine War in 1948 and what happened in it. And so the environment was quite ripe for a change,
Yes.
a drastic change in everything in the life of Egypt and the Egyptians. But the way the Egyptians were 26 million only at that time, they are more than 100 million now, so it is four times. So there were bad situations that led to the revolution, and that is why the people at that time came out to the streets to hate the new change in government and in regime, and many things which have followed during these 72 years. Some of the pioneers are not with us anymore, or most of the pioneers are not with us anymore, but what they have done for Egypt and to Egypt is quite clear to everyone who can see and compare situation in Egypt before 1952 and now in 2024, that is 72 years of development in many fields in Egypt, whether political-wise, the standard of living, the amenities which are available, and the infrastructure we are seeing now, which we have not seen it before, and many things which we are enjoying now are the result of the change of regime instead of the pre-revolution times compared to the after-revolution times. And that is why most of the Egyptians, I cannot say all, of course, are quite happy to what we have seen, and we are looking forward to more development in all fields of life, because the Egyptians deserve the best in everything. They are wonderful people. We have seen them overseas in many countries which I have been posted to, and I've seen one day they are all, in most of the cases they are better than equals or their counterparts in foreign countries. So we have a lot to do together, and we can do it together to make life better in Egypt every day.
So, sir, how do you describe international reactions to the revolution at that time?
At that time, there was, of course, the new regime was quite aware of there was the occupation, British occupation to the Suez Canal zone, and so this was something very important on the United States. The Sixth Fleet was in the Mediterranean, and the Western countries were not happy with what happened, because it means change of regime, change of attitude, a change of our look to ourselves, and so there was animosity to the new revolution, but the Egyptian people stood strongly behind their leadership, and that is why we could succeed in achieving and stabilizing this situation, in stabilizing the country, regardless of what was the response over which British occupation forces in Egypt. And even it was very important that the Egyptians began to exert all their efforts to expel the British from the Egyptian land at that time, and at the end of the day in 1956 they were expelled, and this was one of the many results of the revolution of 1952.
So, sir, how do you read President Fattah al-Sisi's address to the nation marking this occasion?
President Fattah al-Sisi is doing his best in his own way to make life better for the Egyptians and make the standing of Egypt worldwide far better than it has been before. So the Egyptians are required, and they have a responsibility to support their leadership, to work very hard and to compensate what we have lost during the years, and we have lost a lot expressed in the level of standard of living, and there is a lot we can do together so that Egypt resumes its role in the Arab world, in the African continent, and on the international arena, so that Egypt was, in 1951, it was better than London in many respects and aspects. So we have a role to play in making Egypt regain its status in the world, and it is must for every Egyptian to do his best, to do the needful, and we know what is needed, but some people are do not do it well, or they are against the will of the masses. The will of the masses is a better standard, bring better level of life, and also to stop and to eradicate corruption. I will say corruption is very important handicap for any development of any evolution of any change.
Yes, also the President said that the 23rd of July revolution inspired freedom movements across the world. How would you elaborate on the statement?
Egypt after 1952 took the role of the leader of liberation movements, first in the Arab world and second in the African countries, and also it was extended to Latin America and the Asian countries. So Egypt was the banner and was like a minaret in the field of occupation of foreign forces to foreign countries, and we have seen that Egypt was supportive to Algeria, Algerian revolution, so the Algerians got independence thanks to the support, material support and military support of Egypt. It was extended even to as far as Congo at the time of Patrice Lumumba, and so that Egypt has done a lot, and we paid in money, in ammunition, in all forms of material help to African countries and Arab countries to get their independence from the British occupation or French occupation, and in some cases from the Portuguese or Spanish occupation in the African continents. So the African countries know very well what we have done for the liberation movements in Kenya, in Congo, in Chad, in Algeria, in several, and in Sudan also. And so all the African countries, when they go to the history and read it carefully, they find that Egypt was quite supportive of the independence of the African countries, independence of Arab countries, and this was reflected on the people of these countries who appreciate what has been done by Egypt at these times.
So, sir, also, if we talk about the colonial power ties with their former colonies, to what extent it changed after the freedom movements and independence?
In fact, Egypt paid a high price for supporting freedom movements in African countries. The 1956 aggression on Egypt by Israel, Britain, and France was the result of our support to liberation movements in Kenya, in Algeria, in Congo, and other parts. So Egypt has done a lot for liberation movements in the continent, and we see the result that most of the countries got in their independence during the 1950s and the early 1960s, and even whether in Arab countries, Arab world, or African countries, North or South African countries. So a lot has been done, and Egypt was an instigator and was the big beacon for which the Arab countries and the African countries were looking, and were looking not only for moral support, but also for material support, not in the form of soldiers, of course, but in the form of ammunition and so on. And so they are appreciative of what Egypt has done for them, and many of them cannot forget that Egypt was a very dominant factor in gaining independence for African countries.
Yes, I'd like to thank you, Mr. Ayoub, Mahmoud Ayoub, Ambassador Mahmoud Ayoub. Thank you for being with us today. And also we go back to our reports from Africa and moving to Ethiopia, and the death toll from a landslide in southern Ethiopia has risen to 146. The South Ethiopian regional state has been battered by the short seasonal rains between April and early May that have caused flooding and mass displacements. Details follow.
Toll from a landslide in southern Ethiopia has risen to at least 146. A statement from the Gofa Zone Communications Affairs Department reported the toll Tuesday, warning that the number could rise. The landslide occurred around 10 a.m. 700 GMT on Monday following heavy rains in a mountainous area of South Ethiopia regional state. Officials said the bodies of 96 men and 50 women had been found, adding that the search was continuing vigorously and warning that the number of dead could increase. Images streamed by the state-affiliated media outlet Fana Broadcasting Corporate on Monday showed hundreds of people near a devastating scene of tumbled red soil. The photographs showed people using their bare hands to dig through the dirt in search of survivors. Gofa Zone is roughly 450 kilometers from the capital Addis Ababa, a drive of about 10 hours and located north of the Maize National Park. The South Ethiopia regional state has been battered by the short seasonal rains between April and early May that have caused flooding and mass displacement.
And also moving to Mali, and at least 26 villagers were killed in the latest violence in central Mali near the border with Burkina Faso. Observers say such attacks are becoming increasingly frequent in central Mali as the country's military junta also struggles to contain violence in the northern region. Details follow.
At least 26 people were killed Sunday evening after an armed group attacked a village in Mali's central region. A government official reported the toll on Monday in Dembu village, the latest violence attack in the conflict-hit region. The mayor of Bankas town, where Dembu is located, said the assailants attacked villagers as most of them worked in their farmlands. Such attacks are becoming increasingly frequent in central Mali as the country's military junta also struggles to contain violence in the northern region. No group has claimed responsibility for Sunday's attack. The armed violence across central and northern Mali has raged on for more than a decade. Extremist rebels who were once forced from power in northern cities, with the help of recently expelled French troops, have regrouped and launched attacks on remote villages and security forces. A 2015 peace deal with ethnic Tuareg rebels active in the north has also collapsed, deepening the security crisis.
And by that, dear viewers, we come to the end of special edition of Africa Today. Thank you for watching.